Shonda, what's your favorite dish that you like to make for Kabbalat Shabbat?
Oh, my favorite dish is my mother's, Mama Ruby's kosher fried chicken,
Oh,
and it's so delicious. But I have to tell you, when I started making it, having friends that were kosher, I wanted to make sure that I had the recipe that not only honored my mother, but also honored my beliefs and to keep it in the homes that we are in to keep kosher. So with that, we the spices that my mother used and how she put them together and how she mixed everything up. I keep that, it reminds me of her. Like when I smell and making the chicken and hearing it fry, it's a beautiful thing because it's something that my mother gave me out of love. She made it with love. So when I'm at Shabbat, I give it to all my wonderful Jewish family and friends, and it's special. So,
so good. I'm like, my mouth is watery. What are some of the spices that you like to use?
my mom used to use she didn't have like this particular all the spices that I use right now, but it's really just her basic spices, and it is onion powder, garlic powder, a seasoning called Old Bay, which is very, my house has like the biggest thing of it. Lari seasoning salt. It also has kosher, not kosher, but coarse black pepper. Some people use black pepper either out of the grinder, which is really great, but I really love the coarse black pepper. I think it brings out the flavor more. And I put a little bit, just a teeny bit of kosher consomme. And that just kind of brings that flavor of the chicken and makes it feel, because my mom used to do it, she just but I make it sure it's kosher.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have, April, do you have any spices that you associate with Shabbat? I don't know if that sounds weird, but I grew up with certain dishes and like certain spices I know are going to be used on Shabbat.
So I've taken an interesting take on Shabbat. What I grew up with Ashkenazi food, which to me at this point in my life is quite bland compared to my Black heritage. So when I found out that there were other traditions inside of Jewish food and cooking, I felt like I had not known the secret of Jewish food, right? So I go to the diaspora for my spices. So I make my own homemade harissa. I make a lot of my own spices. Actually, I'll mix and blend spices and sauces. But harissa is one that we always have on our table. I love za'atar. I have Israeli olive oil, and when I go to Israel, I'll buy a big bag from the spice shop of Israeli za'atar.
How
and
big?
Then like
a suitcase or
no, like this big, and then you put in a tablespoon with about a tablespoon and a half of olive oil or 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So it's really nice to dip your challah or your pita in that. I could go on and on, but those are the two that if you're coming to my table on Shabbat, you're going to see my homemade harissa, and you're going to see olive oil and za'atar
Oh my
on the
gosh.
table.
I low-key, high-key just want to be at everyone's Shabbats, but I will bring it over to Tanya. Are there any foods on Kabbalat Shabbat that is like a must-have outside of challah?
Okay. So you took away the only one I would have said.
Ruthless.
Yeah, ruthless.
So sorry.
You are. Yeah, no, I have to go to Shonda and April's actually for Shabbat because I don't cook. So I go to Shabbat at other people's homes.
But yeah.
Yeah, and so it really is only Lahala I can be like assured will be there. Everything else is usually up to, whoever's hosting us. So I don't know.
I was going to say, we would love to have you. There's nothing more. There's nothing more being Jewish is inviting somebody to your Shabbat table. So just because you don't cook, but absolutely, would love it.
If we're not going to the Shabbats, then the tables aren't as full. So I feel like thank you, and right. So then, do you have a favorite challah? Because I've had so many different types. You have like a most memorable one?
I have, and it's not something I could, have on a weekly basis, but during the pandemic, there was a woman making rainbow challah, and she would drop it off on your doorstep. And it was like an angel delivery. And it was delicious. It was not too sweet, and it was beautiful to look at. I took a photo every week. I was like, wow. And it was just delicious. And I normally am not a sweet person per se, but it had just a touch of like a little bit of sweetness that you don't get in plain challah. So yeah, that's really my favorite. And I haven't had it since the pandemic. She like shut down for business and went wherever she went. And so there was a very happy period of having that with my family.
I love it.
It's chicken. It's soul food. I don't know if this is too basic of a question, but what makes it Jewish soul food? Like, what makes Jewish soul food Jewish soul food?
Because it's soul food not only because I'm African American and you talk about soul food in America, right? But it's Jewish soul food because this is something that is in all our cultures and it's connected. But it's our mothers and our families our families that are making this chicken out of love. When you feed somebody at your table, when you give them your food, when you share Shabbat, you are feeding the soul. And that is a very Jewish thing. That's how I see it. It is kosher fried chicken, but it is Jewish soul food for me.
I'm hearing it's also the intention.
Then yes, it is. It's the beauty of giving somebody something and nourishing them, having them come and eat and be a part of your family and your traditions and the holiday and on top of that, how can you go wrong with chicken or schnitzel or you know what I mean? It's basically the same, but it's more than that. It is what you give when you put something on the table. And I'm so glad to share it with you today.
See, it's important that we show up places to eat the food because then okay.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Are there any other favorite soul foods that you love to cook?
I love to cook matzo ball soup or chicken and dumplings. They're very connected.
Yeah.
They're very similar. Or when I make my matzo balls, instead of making just matzo ball soup with just a basic chicken soup, I actually make it a thicker version, like when I make my chicken and dumplings. So it's more like a gravy, and it's so delicious. And it's also like what also is a connection is like some of the matzo balls they use what is called grimness. And it is the fried chicken skins. And I know a lot of people say that, but if you just put just a little bit in the middle of it, and it just brings the flavor out. And it's very traditional, and it is delicious.
I love that. We were talking about a little bit earlier. I'm going to start with you, April. Do you cut the challah? Do you rip it apart? I know there's a lot of different traditions. I don't know what comes from where.
It really depends. My preference is to rip it and throw it. I know we throw it all around the room to anyone.
Does it ever hit anybody in the face?
Of course, it falls on the floor. People aren't ready, but we're like, get ready. So you got to get ready. So some people have a knife to cut halal, but it's really, there's something about your hands and food and finger foods. And we've actually learned that when you eat things with your hands, that it gets your body ready for digestion. So there's something spiritual and actually physiological that happens when you handle food with your hands. And I think in the Ethiopian tradition, the man actually is in charge of cutting the challah, and there's a special knife to do that, and the shape of the challah is different. So yeah, my preference is to throw, but some people don't like to throw. And so they'll break it apart with their hands and pass it out, and then some people will just slice it.
I'm picturing your Shabbat table with like catcher's mitt and like gear on and like, all right, you ready?
And if you have a big enough group, it's like across the house, right? Like, so across the, yeah.
I'm scared of flying objects, but I also love a thrown challah piece, so I'm like conflicted and loving this.
Get ready.
And on the topic of carbs, because we were also talking about your love of bagels. Can you tell me more about that?
It's just such a comfort food to me, I guess. Growing up, I went to a Jewish Sunday school, and the break time was always bagels and cream cheese. And that's what I associate with my Sunday school. And my son goes there now, and it's the first thing he talks about on Sunday mornings. Like, are we having bagels? So it's just very much a part of, that tradition of Sunday school. And yeah, so it's another favorite carb. I'm just so glad all my cultures encourage carb loading. That makes me really happy.
When you say all my cultures, if I may ask, like what else?
I'm Mexican, so we eat everything with tortillas. So my abuelito would come over and we would make like a pastrami sandwich, and he would literally eat it with a rolled up tortilla, like taking bites of each.
Yes.
So yes, carbs are, I think, a very important element to my background.
There's something like very hearty about it. And then also, does anyone else have any like bagel, like warm bagel association? Or I know I definitely do, where like bagels, they like feed your soul a bit, or not as much?
I can't do as much wheat anymore, but when I was a kid, every Sunday we would have bagels. Every single Sunday we'd have bagels, lox and cream cheese.
This is a thing.
with capers, tomatoes, sliced onion. Now we do it in my home probably once every couple of months, or maybe probably more. And then, of course, when you're in Israel, the Israeli bagels are like this big, and I learned that story about Jews not being able to.
Can you share?
Please. It could be folklore, but I heard that in some societies that Jews weren't allowed to own bakeries or use the communal ovens, so Jews had to, in order to make money and survive, we had to bake all of our bread in some other oven and then carry this bread around. And somebody decided to poke a hole through the bread, and and then it ended up being a bagel. So, and of course, there's also the lore that best bagels come from New York because of their water. And we got bagels when I was a kid from a bakery. I want to say, is Nate Nels? No, that's the deli. I'll have to think about who it was. I'll ask my mother. But we always went to this one bagel store on Westwood Boulevard because they supposedly had water from New York or something. Have you heard? And so it was always from there.
Amazing. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm actually so hungry. So I say, everyone, let's tear some challah and eat up. You ready?
You ready?
You ready?
Get ready.
Are you gonna
Get
throw
ready.
it? You're throwing it.
You're not ready.
You gotta get ready.
Gotta get ready for the whole
I cannot believe I caught it.
Okay, so something that I'm wondering if you all might identify with is this feeling that I feel, I know a lot of other queer people, is that we're too queer in Jewish spaces and we're too Jewish in queer spaces. Does that resonate with you for your own experience of Jewishness, and if so, how? And just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I feel like that's happened to me recently as a Black Jewish woman who happens to be straight. When I go into spaces, for people of color or multi-ethnic spaces, and I'm either the only Jewish person in those spaces or I'm tasked with representing Jewish identity, I have felt this, especially post, I would say, May 2021, I have felt this extra pressure to represent the entirety of our community, the entirety of what's going on, and just versus just hanging out sometimes. And I still just hang out sometimes, but I also, there's more to it. Like my ears are a little bit more perked up, and I'm a little bit more listening for conversations around topics that impact the news of today, right? And some of the concerns that many people have around our community.
Yeah. It's like either way, you're just like the only one.
Yeah, and
Or
of course,
one of-
being a Jewish person of color in our community, I'm really sensitive, to are we represented here in the numbers? If we go to Israel, over half of Israelis would not be considered white here. In the United States, 15 to 20% of us are multi-ethnic Jews. All of us are Jews, of course, but we are not represented at the levels that we exist in space. And since I work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's something that I look for. If 25% of us are disabled, including neuroatypical, if 10% of us are LGBTQ+, if 15 to 20% and growing and bigger on the coast and bigger in big cities are Jews of color in the US, where are we in leadership and representation, in media, in books, in all of the spaces that we occupy? I think about those things, of course. And then I also think about, how am I showing up in this space as one of few Jews of color in this space? How am I being received and perceived?
Yeah. What about anyone else? Did that resonate with anyone else?
Yeah, it definitely resonates with me. I've had a hard time sometimes, even just saying I'm Jewish in certain spaces.
Yeah.
And even within the work that I do, sometimes I feel like if certain people found out if I was Jewish, how that could affect certain parts of my job, or if certain families would still want me to work with their children. And I don't feel like that is something as humans that we shouldn't have to worry about, especially if I'm in a field where I've chosen to work with children. I want to be there, and so it shouldn't matter what I am or who I am if this is what I am doing. Like, I'm putting myself out there. So there are times when I wear this ring, and if I feel like I'm a threat or I'm being threatened in any sort of way, I turn it backwards.
I do too.
And it's such an unnerving feeling to be in those situations.
And we all have a little magenta feed ring.
Yeah.
Mine's
do.
just a G.
Nice. For Jewish.
Just curious, show of hands, who has ever been told an anti-Semitic joke or something where people assumed you weren't Jewish? And
Yeah. For me, I'm like, most of 99% of the time, it's not that bad. It's not that deep. It's people that are just not aware, or they don't know. It's not meant to be malicious. It's not meant to be at least in my experience. But what about you, Shonda?
I feel like that, because my daughter is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and
She just got married.
yes, she just got married. Yeah, my beautiful girls, my beautiful two girls. I love them dearly, but any kind of marginalized community that says something like that. That's why my face was like, if that's too if it's too Jewry, or we don't want to, we don't want queer, or we don't want the LGBTQ plus community around, or we don't, there's too many blacks in the neighborhood, or there's too many Hispanics in there. All of those things, it's not only just our community, it is affecting our world. And we have to, as Jewish people, we are to be the light, and we have to be there to help not only our community, but also that middle. Those conversations, knowing that that's not okay to say. You don't say, you don't want to say those things to any community.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody to feel like that.
Yeah.
How do you two stay, if I can, strong, because you're dealing with such a duality, and being African American women, and then being Jewish women, what keeps you strong?
Well, I'm sort of invisibly black and invisibly Jewish. Unless you know. People think I'm Persian or Latine or any manner of things. So for much of my life, I've either been stared at, asked what you are, and I also speak a few languages. So I've been insulted by all my people about all my people all over the world and in different languages. And I've leaned into that, and I work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I really understand the mental math that you have to go through to otherwise, create that experience of othering for another human being. And so part of it is just the work that I've done in the work, and then having experienced it, I have been canceled. It's made international news, and that created a really bad moment for me in my life that I had to push through. And I can honestly say whatever doesn't kill you ends up being your superpower, because that just really, they messed with the wrong one. So that centered my resolve to work in this space and to talk about these things more and to bring it out. And so my strength really is my family, and knowing that I have generations of Jutinos and Bluish kids that are going to be here. I have great grandchildren to protect, and I'm thinking of future, le dor v'dor, future generations that really need our representation to make a difference right now, today, not later.
Beautiful. I was also kind of canceled, but I'm not famous enough to get canceled, but I got a lot of hate on the internet. We could talk about it after.
I wasn't famous until that. I know. I was just like,
For me, I'm 100% African American. I'm 100% Jewish. I'm 100% a woman. And you can't take that from me. You cannot separate what I feel and what I'm walking through in your spaces. I have to walk in my own space. And I feel comfortable and happy, and I feel joy in my own space. And that's how I keep strong. Our family, our traditions, but really, walking in different spaces is not always easy. And you know what? It's okay not to carry everything on our shoulders.
Yeah.
Let's give ourselves some grace. Let's give ourselves some little bit of self-care, a little bit of, that it's okay. And it can happen in any part. It could happen in any community, and this is all community. It doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or not. These are things that we need to not feel and not want that to happen to anybody or any community.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Amen.
L'chaim.
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 Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.